When David Bowie left the world in 2016, millions felt the shock instantly. But inside the quiet shelter of his home, a teenage girl named Alexandria Lexi Zara Jones felt something far heavier than global grief. To the world, Bowie had been a legend. To her, he had been the calm voice at bedtime, the warm presence beside her piano, and the father whose love softened every hard moment of growing up. The cameras mourned the icon, but Lexi mourned the man who had been the center of her universe. In the days that followed, she disappeared completely, no public statements, no interviews, no appearances. Just silence. That silence didn't come from entitlement. It came from a wound so deep she didn't yet know how to speak around it. For more than a decade, that private girl grew into a woman the world barely recognized, a transformation shaped by tragedy, creativity, and quiet resilience. But her story begins long before she was born, woven into the history of her mother, Iman, a woman whose strength began in Somalia many years earlier. Born as Zara Muhammad Abdul Majid in Mogadishu, Iman arrived as the first girl in 6 generations of her family, a symbol of hope from the moment she took her first breath. Her childhood was shaped by education, discipline, and ambition, thanks to parents who believed deeply in opportunity. Her father served as an ambassador, her mother as a gynecologist, and their home taught her that intelligence and grace could coexist. Her grandfather gave her the name Iman's faith, believing it was more than a name. It was a destiny. Growing up between Somalia and Egypt, she learned languages as easily as she learned strength, adapting to every new chapter life gave her. When political unrest shook her homeland, her family rebuilt their lives in Kenya, where Iman pursued political science at university. She imagined herself becoming a diplomat, never dreaming of cameras, runways, or the world of fashion. But that future arrived the day photographer Peter Beard saw her on campus, sensing something extraordinary even before she did. Her journey into modeling wasn't planned, it was a door life opened unexpectedly. That door eventually led her across continents, through fame, and toward a man who was building his own mythic world, David Bowie. Bowie had been reinventing himself long before their paths crossed, transforming from David Robert Jones into one of the most visionary artists in music history. His early years were full of uncertainty, experiments, and a desire to create something different from anyone around him. Then Space Oddity changed everything, pulling him into a spotlight he would spend decades reshaping. Yet behind every character, Ziggy, the thin white duke, the restless innovator, was a man who often felt like he was still searching for a place to belong. Fame gave him audiences, but it didn't give him peace. That longing for connection became clear the night he and Iman met at a party in Los Angeles, introduced by a mutual friend who felt they were destined to collide. Bowie was immediately drawn to her, not the public version of her, but the composed, intelligent woman who carried herself with quiet strength. He said he felt something shift inside him that night, as if a part of him had finally found its match. Iman didn't fall instantly. She had learned to move slowly, to trust intention over charm. Bowie understood. So he pursued her with a gentleness that revealed the man behind the rock star. Flowers in Paris. Thoughtful gestures. A steady presence waiting patiently for her to see him clearly. When she finally did, she realized she wasn't falling for a legend, she was falling for a man who loved her with sincerity and depth. Their marriage in 1992 marked the beginning of a life built on privacy, love, and a desire to protect whatever they created together. In August 2000, when Lexi was born, their world expanded in a way neither of them had expected so late in life. Bowie held her in his arms, trembling, overwhelmed by the miracle of her arrival. And from that moment on, he chose fatherhood with a devotion that surprised even longtime friends. They raised Lexi far from cameras, determined to let her be a child and not a headline. Days at home were filled with art, music, stories, and gentle moments that rarely made it into the public eye. But as those peaceful years went by, Bowie quietly faced a battle he shared with only a handful of people. When illness entered his life, he shielded Lexi from the worst of it, wanting her memories to be filled with joy, not fear. And when he passed away, her world collapsed in a way the public could never fully understand. Grief arrived not as tears but as silence, anger, and confusion, a storm she didn't know how to navigate. She withdrew, feeling lost in a world that suddenly felt too large and too empty. It took years for her to find something solid enough to hold on to again. That anchor came in the form of art, raw, emotional, messy, honest art that became her safe place when words weren't enough. Through painting, she poured out the chaos inside her, turning pain into something that could breathe outside her body. When she finally shared her work online, people saw not a celebrity daughter but a young woman learning to heal. Music, too, began whispering to her, pulling her toward the same creative language her father once used to navigate the world. She recorded privately, slowly building confidence, letting her own voice emerge, not as an echo of Bowie, but as her own sound. Stories followed, written fragments of loss, growth, and rediscovery that revealed a depth few expected. With time, she stepped more boldly into adulthood, embracing her creativity, her identity, and the legacy she inherited without letting it define her. Today, she stands as a reflection of two extraordinary people, but also as someone entirely independent, forged through pain, art, and perseverance. Her journey is not just a celebrity story, it's the story of a girl who lost everything, rebuilt herself slowly, and emerged as a woman with her own voice, her own vision, and her own quiet strength.